Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we finished off stage 4 of the invasion, and we are now on to stage 5. I was going to say quick, I went through some of the gear I had found, ran a couple missions to try to unlock some of the traits, and it all sucked. The armor's still good though. Alright, Stage 5, Enemy at the Gate. Following the disastrous counteroffensive, the invaders have advanced on all fronts. Worse still, the war just reached the first hive when a Nurgle cult has emerged from the depths of a colossal city. At the same time, a traitorous Imperial Guard regiment turned on the hive from the outside. It won't be easy to deal with both threats simultaneously, but we can't allow such an important hive to fall so easily. Oh, so now we have to deal with the... I don't know, this is probably like the first stage of an invasion, really. Unless we break out of this one and then push them back, there could be another, like, 2 or 3 stages on top of this.
The web of heresy and corruption is spun by powerful beings and perverted minds. Hunt their leaders, and this construct of evil will come crashing down.
There's a whole lot of mines here. But when I'm not working on videos and stuff, I was playing some more Total War Warhammer, and every time, I swear, I forget how bad it is sometimes to play Tomb Kings. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'll play Tomb Kings. And then I do it and I'm like, oh god, why am I doing this to myself? I always forget their armies... Wow, this is actually a lot of guys. But their armies are always so meh. Like, I'm so used to playing Vampire Coast, because that's who I typically play. Then I'm like, oh, you know, I'll just do what I always do, set up my gun line and have, you know, my depth guard or equivalent melee guys as my front line while I just pepper them down and unleash, you know, 3 units of mortars. But then I try to do that with Tomb Kings and I remember, oh right, their archers kinda suck, as do most of their infantry. And their artillery consists of Screaming Skull catapults, or Casket of Souls, and I have to do a ritual every time I want a new Casket of Souls. God, look at all the shots just slow-mowing.
He deserved worse. Much worse.
But I swear, I have to figure out how to play Tomb Kings. There has to be a way to do it correctly, and I'm just missing something. Because I always try to play Ark in the Black, because I think out of everyone he has the best starting position. Since his main enemy for a while is just gonna be Bretonnia, and Bretonnia kinda sucks outside of their cav. And I'd rather deal with them than be Cetra and have to deal with everything else in the area, or playing as Halida, because even though her poison stuff's really good, her starting position blows, because you're either going to team up with Clan Moors and lose a ton of land instantly, or you're going to have to fight Clan Moors. You're going to have to team up with the Last Defenders and lose some land, or fight the Last Defenders. You have Malice Darkblade hanging out in the water nearby, just waiting to jump you. So you gotta go fight him, and then you're gonna have to deal with Deathmaster Snitch, because he's not gonna get wiped, most likely. And then you're gonna be up against Grimgore Ironhides, gotta deal with Grimgore. So it's like, no matter what you do, you're dealing with someone that you really don't want to be dealing with. And then, as much as I want to play Grand Hierophant Kata, he's another one with just a terrible starting position. Because you're either going to fight Dark Elves, who are gonna outclass you. Unfortunately, there's no two ways about it. Or you end up staying alive long enough that the Sisters of Twilight are like, hey, you exist and that's a problem. And just declare war on you for no valid reason. Kind of reminds me of like playing Skulk, where now that Lustria is full of legendary lizard men, it's just an absolute brawl. Like you're fighting for your life every turn. Kinda wish the vampire counts had somebody further south. Because it kind of sucks playing as Manfred or Vlad or Isabella or Helm and Gorsh because they're all in the same area and they're the same two factions. Otherwise you play as Heinrich Kemmler and then you're just skelly spamming the hell out of Bretonia, so you have no time to really go anywhere. And even then, if you do, chances are you're gonna end up having the Wood Elves suddenly just be like, yeah, we want your lands for no reason in particular. Never seems like those factions can get a decent start going. Well, like, I hate that I have to skelly spam, because it's such a sleazy tactic, but it's like the only thing that seems to work reliably. I just hope the new siege changes can make things better. I really hope those siege changes apply to everyone and all the capitals and stuff get reworked. Because otherwise, if it's just like, oh yeah, Warhammer 3 locations get the new siege and everybody else gets old siege, it's just gonna really suck. I'm gonna be honest. It'll be so rough. Those new places getting towers and walls you can build when everywhere else is just like, yep, here's one wall, hope the interior benefits you in some way. Looks like one last tank to go whack. So I was thinking, because I think it was last time I had mentioned not hearing anything about Darktide. I'm really hoping that... yeah, I want it to be better than how Vermintide has been. Because even though Vermintide 2 is far better than Vermintide 1, I still think it could be better. I think enemy variety is going to be a problem. Since, Vermintide 2 was like, hey, you want to fight Beastmen? Or Chaos? Or Skaven? Take your pick. At least that way you had a lot to work with. But when it's pretty explicit, or at least expressed explicitly that it's like, hey, it's Nurgle. It's like, okay, that kind of limits my options here. I'd hope we'd see some rather unheard of nerdly things like Plague Reapers or like a Leman Russ that's been Nurgle-fied. There's a lot of interesting stuff they could do. And that's not even including weapons. There's a lot of interesting weapon choices that could exist.
You set a fine example for their kind, Inquisitor.
Wow. I mean, okay. You know what? We will give it a try. Considering this, it's guaranteed to unlock everything. 100 critical hits, 4 abilities unlocked. Deal damage, well, that's going to come with critical hits. Well, of course.
The enemies of the Imperium are infinite, and such a vast threat can only be fought with ingenuity. Kill the Masters, and you will render a sea of vermin helpless.
I guess my big thing when it comes to Darktide is I don't want it to end up like Alien Fireteam Elite, where they're like, oh yeah, if you want these better guns, you have to play on like max difficulty, because that's the only time they drop. Because then you have to have a pre-made group, otherwise randos are going to screw you over. As we've seen with every one of these games, even Back 4 Blood. Back 4 Blood, within days of launch, I saw people talking about how they were stuck with teammates who were dumb as sand. It's like, I don't want to deal with that. And Back 4 Blood has issues too. Some people find the deck building a bit tedious, which I can definitely agree with. The fact that the enemy corruption cards come in after you've already made your choice, so you can't really try to build around it. You're kind of forced to just kind of shut up and take whatever is given. Which I get to a degree, because the whole idea is you're building and fulfilling a role, but it's still kind of rough, and you could still fulfill that role and have some tweaks to how your build works depending on what you're facing. I'd like to see a lot of modifiers for Darktide. You know, a lot of stuff to really change up how the game plays. I hope some of the environments are a bit bigger and more open. I'm a bit concerned that we're going to end up with, you know, locations kind of like this, where it's just hallways. You know, some Space Hulk looking stuff, where it's like, oh, you went through a hallway, you're now in Junction Hallway B, congratulations, you've now made it to Maintenance Hallway 3A, now you're into Junction Hallway D, and you're like, really? I'm just in Maintenance forever? You know, there's definitely a balance. You can definitely create something where you can get those claustrophobic moments, and I think limiting them to moments is a better option than making it so open areas feel like an anomaly. But I guess it'll also depend on enemies, you know. Do we have Nurgle cultists? Because if we have Plague Marines and Nurgle cultists, you're gonna have to have more open areas, because otherwise it's gonna be everybody standing in a hallway shooting down a hallway at each other. You know, in those times you gotta get a little creative. I wonder if Plague Ogrins are gonna kind of function as the... I guess the equivalent for Vermintide would be Rat Ogres. I mean, there's a lot they could choose for kind of boss enemies that would be viable.
No pity.
Just depends on what they pick. And then there's the question of how they're going to do stuff like health. Do you follow more of a Back 4 Blood approach, where you have health, and then as you take damage, your max health decreases until you use certain medical items? Like how Back 4 Blood has trauma. It adds challenge, but it can get a bit annoying.
Reloading.
And then, of course, how well defined are the new classes, or these supposed classes going to be? How limiting are they? Is it going to be like, oh, you're a standard guardsman, you only get las guns? Because nobody's going to want to pick that then. Unless there's a ton of las guns. But then there comes the question of what diversifies these classes effectively. Is it just some abilities, weapon choice, health, armor stats? What is it? Lots of questions and little to no answers. Such is my plight when developers go quiet.
Success is measured in blood.
Man, these time distortions are really useful. I was fighting Dark Eldar to level up some of the stuff I ended up dumpstering, and this was really good against like Kronos and all those bigger enemies, their champions. Yeah, they still got hits in and would survive the duration, but I could at least slow them down a good amount. And of course, those were like 2 or 3 levels higher than me in the mission, so they had, I think, a 40% damage reduction on top of other modifiers.
Now you can watch the body wander aimlessly until it withers and dies.
That was a nice little run. Pretty quick, didn't see any major loot though. Maybe our end reward will be interesting. Oh well, our last mission paid out pretty good, so I can't complain. And that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.